everybody, it's time for the theme song.
Discover and play and learn and grow with the people we love and the places we know. Shining light wherever we go. It's the spectacular summer show. With Miss Hannah.
Hi friends, welcome back to episode 2 of the Spectacular Summer Show. You know, last week was really special as we talked with friends who are different than us, but we really kind of learned that they're just like you and they're just like me. And they're people that God created. And we talked about how we are God's favorite creation. You know, when I think about it, God has really made a beautiful world for us. And He's entrusted us to take care of it.
Entrust? What does that mean?
Oh, hi. Who are you?
Captain McDougal is my name.
Captain McDougal?
Yes.
Wow.
I heard you say a funny word.
Oh, entrust?
Yes.
So entrust means that God has trusted us to take good care of His world.
Oh, kind of like how my owners have entrusted me with a ship I can't find.
You can't find your ship.
Yeah, well, I thought it might be in here.
Well, I don't know why a ship would be in here.
Well, you never know where they go, wherever the wind takes them.
But I think also they probably need to be in water.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'll look there.
Okay. Anyway, today our show is all about nature. We're going to go exploring in our world and see the beautiful creation that God has made for us. From trees and birds, the sky, even down to little buzzing bees. Let's go. Hey friends, check it out. I look a little different than when you saw me a few minutes ago. But we are out here with Mr. Bob Gruner, who is a beekeeper, and he is going to talk to us about bees today. So thank you, Mr. Bob, for being on our show today.
Thanks for being here. It's a great day to work with bees. So we have about 10 hives right now, 10 or 11 hives right now, and we're going to get into this one we call number 9, and we'll see what we get in here. So we're going to get ready, and
We're all suited up to protect us from the bees because we're invading their home right now.
it's a good day to be in the hive though, because it's not cloudy, it's not too hot. Sometimes in the dog days of summer, it's a real bad time to get into the hive. Now you always see a beekeeper with a smoker. We give them a little bit of smoke, and what that does is two things. Bees are they think they're out in the wild. When they smell the smoke, they think that their forest is on fire and they're going to lose their home. So when I give them a little smoke, they go in and all the bees will gorge on the honey and they'll fill their bellies up with honey. So that when they fly off and go to a new home, they all have honey in their bellies and they can turn that honey into wax. Mm-hmm. They take the wax, they build the comb, which then the queen can keep laying eggs to keep the population of bees, and the cells are what they store the honey and the pollen in it for.
Okay.
The pollen is the food that the bees eat. The importance of bees. You know, there's a lot of different pollinators out there. There's bumblebees, caterpillars, bats, birds, all kinds of things. The reason why honeybees are very important is they're one of the best pollinators, because if you watch the bees, they're very fast. And one bee can visit about 10 to 14 different trips. It'll go out on a trip to visit flowers, and each time they could visit maybe 1,000 flowers. A hive like this may have about 60 to 85,000 bees inside here.
Wow. That's way more than I thought there would be.
The summertime, you could have 60 to 80,000. In the wintertime, there are bees in here in the wintertime, but they're maybe from 15 to 40,000.
Okay.
Now with about 60 to 80,000 bees in there, only about 25,000 of them are going to be foragers, the ones that go out to get the nectar. They hone in on the flower to get the nectar, but what they're doing is they're bumping into the pollen, and then they go from one flower to the next, and they rub the pollen from one flower to the other.
Which I believe is called cross-pollination.
That's right.
Right? Which
Yep.
is important for plant life to help things grow.
Yep. And the reason why honeybees are very good is they tend to want to stick to one group of flowers until all the nectar's gone. So they're going to pollinate all of those flowers by cross-pollinating. Then they'll move on to another batch or different type of bee. Where other animals, birds and things like that, they're hit and miss all over the place. So they get a little bit of pollen on them before they fly back to come back to the hive. They have to clean that pollen off, and you may see a bee flying in with big orange globs on their legs. That's their pollen baskets. And when they get back, their bellies are filled with the nectar that they've sapped up from the flower. They pass that off to a house bee that's inside. That house bee swallows it into her honey stomach, and then she decides either to turn it into honey or turn it into wax. If she decides honey, she puts her head in the cell and she regurgitates it up, and it's not exactly honey, but it's honey with a lot of moisture in it. Once all the cells get filled with the nectar, then all the bees will sit around and fan, and they dehydrate it. And when the moisture content gets below 18%, then they make wax and they cap it. So what they're doing is they're storing up honey for the winter so that they can survive. The pollen, they take that and they make bee bread. They mix it with the enzymes in their stomach and a little bit of nectar, and they feed that to the young, the babies, the young bees that just come out.
Oh, so like bee baby food.
Yeah, yeah. Now one bee, like I said, one bee can go out and do all those trips. So you have 25,000 bees going out each day. In one day, one hive can pollinate about 250 million flowers.
Oh my word, that's huge.
So that's a real cool thing about bees, how important they are.
I guess that's where we get the phrase busy as a bee.
That actually is, yeah. There's a lot of terms that came from beekeeping. Busy as a bee, beeline, you've heard of beeline.
Yes.
If you see how the bees are flying, after a while you could, like if you were to go out anywhere you live and take some honey and water and spit it all over the bushes and then sit back about 20 minutes, you'll see a bunch of honeybees come. And they'll lap it up, they'll go back to their home, and they'll tell all the girls at home where that food source is, and pretty soon you'll see a line of bees going in and out. That is what a beeline is.
Very interesting.
As you can see, they're starting to come out to say hi to us.
Oh boy, here we go. Are you excited?
Now with that, bees can produce or pollinate 250 million bees. One bee, which is a female, one bee will live in the summertime only about 35 to 45 days.
Oh.
So the queen, that's the key, is to have a very good queen so she's always making more bees.
More babies.
Because these girls, and they're all female, all the workers are females, they're going to die in about 35 to 40 days. The last job they're going to do is the forager. They're going to work themselves to death. That's what happens. So you need a good queen that keeps repopulating. You want a queen that's going to lay about 1,200 to 2,000 eggs per day. Once she puts the egg in there, 21 days later, they merge out as an adult worker bee.
Wow.
But the majority of the bees in here are the workers, and they are all female. And there's one queen, and then there are a few thousand drones, which are the males. The males do not have stingers. They cannot sting. They do no work. They don't do anything. They're fed, they're taken care of by the workers. The only thing they do is they go out each day to breed a virgin queen. That's it. So they have one job. Now this is a honey super. This is what we put in here so that they fill it with honey. We just put this box on just the other day, so there's no honey in it yet. They're starting on it, but they don't have anything, and I can show you what it looks like. This is what it looks like when they have filled it out. When we put a brand new frame in here, it'll have just a thin sheet of wax in there. The bees actually made those cells out of wax.
That's very cool.
I may have one that's a clean sheet, but they fill that out and then they or draw that out into cells, and then they fill it with the nectar, dehydrate it, cap it, and then this will be full of honey for us to pull out, extract it, put it in the jars and sell it. But we just put this on, so there's not a lot of bees in here, or not a lot of honey, so I'm gonna get this off.
Oh, level 2. Well, there's lots of bees.
Now we're getting to more bees.
All I can think of is the bees are buzzing in the tree, making some honey just for me. Oh, that one looks much different than the first one.
Now you see the glistening? That is the nectar that they're taking from the flower and coming back and regurgitating it up into the cells. Once all of them get filled with that nectar, then they'll dehydrate it and then cap it, which there's a little bit of capped honey here.
Oh yeah.
Very little though. This has got a little bit more. As you get more towards the center of the hive, you'll see more action going on. But here's more honey. This is capped, and they see a little bit of the glistening nectar that they're filling it.
And if anybody wants to buy honey from you, they can buy it locally at Myers Market.
Myers Market, yep.
So make sure you check that out and have some delicious honey. Do you have a favorite food that you use honey on?
Well, when
recipe?
when our sons were at home, now they're off. Now we have grandkids. But when they were here, at the end of our meal, we would always have. When you're done eating, you take and slap some butter on your plate, and you just squirt honey all over it, and you just stir it in. You pick it up, you put it on bread like icing, and have bread with honey and butter. And I don't know if you remember the old Nickerson Farms restaurant, but they were famous for their honey butter.
Yes.
And that was something that we always liked. We always kept an upside down one of those squeezed ketchup bottles filled with honey on the counter, just for that, to pour on your honey, your butter and bread. It's delicious that way. But I do not like vanilla ice cream. I'm a chocolate fanatic, but I will eat vanilla ice cream if there's honey all over it, and you pour it all over it, you let it sit for a few minutes, and then start eating it, and it kind of caramelizes on the ice cream, and it tastes so good.
Well, now I'm hungry. But thank you, Mr. Bob, so much for showing us your hives and teaching us about bees. And we're going to head back to our studio.
Okay, well, thanks.
See you soon. All right, friends, today I have Mr. Jared Chu. Mr. Jared, I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me, Miss Hannah. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, good. So you are a district conservationist.
Yes.
What on earth does that mean?
I know, it's a big fancy title, right? So I actually work for the United States Department of Agriculture, and it's the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is a big, long title. But I work with farmers and landowners to help them control erosion, improve water quality, maybe plant wildlife habitat, and all kinds of good things that are good for our earth. From a conservation perspective in the environment.
Very interesting. So, since today's all about nature, you have some fun and maybe some creepy crawly things for us today. So first we have an apple. I love apples. Do you love apples? All right.
Yes, I do. So this is kind of an interesting thing. When we think about water and soil and natural resources, these are things that God created that, we're really charged with taking care of. There's only so much soil in the earth, on the earth, that we can actually grow quality food.
Oh.
So there's agriculture on just certain parts of the world. So if you think about the earth as an apple, and this is where we have to have a safety talk here.
Oh, yes.
So,
because you have a sharp knife.
I do have a sharp knife. Kids, don't do this at home without your parents.
Yes.
So we are actually going to cut this apple up and talk about where we can grow the food.
Okay.
So if you think about the earth, how much of the earth is covered with water? It's about 3/4 of the earth is really covered with water. We really can't grow food in those areas. So I'm going to take
Whoa!
that half that I wanted to get rid of.
That was on purpose.
So totally did that on purpose. And then another half of this one takes 3/4 away. So we'll do that one too.
Oh, all right.
So when we do that, so this is what's left of just earth, or just soil, or ground, I should say.
Right.
So now we have other things that we can't grow food on, such as mountains
Right.
and deserts and places like that. So we're actually going to cut that in half as well.
Oh, man.
Glaciers, we can't grow food on glaciers. So we cut that one in half. So now we're left with just the area once we take the deserts and that kind of thing. Now we also have streets, houses,
Oh, true.
and cities and things like that where we don't grow water. So I'm actually going to remove that stuff like this. I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces. So we set these 3 aside, and this here represents the amount of ground that we can actually grow our food on.
Wow, I've never thought of it in that way before.
And we're actually not done yet.
We're not done yet.
So
That's not very big anymore.
I know.
Okay.
That's kind of the crazy thing is on the earth, we actually just have the topsoil
Oh,
that we can
right.
grow our food on, right? Because this would all be underground. So this little piece is what we have to grow the food for all of the people on the earth.
Wow.
So the reason why we talk about that, Miss Hannah, is because if this is all we have, it's pretty important that we take good care of it.
It's very
Would
true.
you agree?
I would agree. How about you? Do you agree? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the important part of my job, is to make sure the soil that we have on the earth, the valuable topsoil, that we're doing everything we can to conserve that, protect it from erosion, and make sure it's not washing away into our streams and rivers. And
Which that's what erosion means, right?
Exactly.
Another big word that we probably need to make sure.
yes,
I was pretty sure that's what it meant, but I wanted to double check.
that's exactly right. Erosion is washing away the soil by water or wind, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, so taking your job seems like a pretty important job, actually.
I think so.
Well, you're more important than I realized, Mr. Jarrett. Okay.
Yeah, so when I go out on my job, I work with a lot of farmers, as you can imagine, the
Right.
places where we grow our food. And so farmers will call me and say, hey, we have a field here that maybe has some erosion, and what can we do? So we have lots of different conservation practices, but a lot of what erosion control from water revolves around is protecting the topsoil, protecting the surface. What are some things that we can do to protect the surface of the soil? Well, one of the things that we can do is try to make sure it's covered as much as possible. Because bare soil, when it's exposed to water, especially raindrops, can wash away very easily. So if we can protect that or armor the soil, think about putting on armor, right?
Shields.
Absolutely. I actually do a demonstration sometimes with the shield. I forgot my shield today. We actually work with farmers to help, put things like cover crops, which means growing something outside of the times when we're growing our food crops. So we actually grow grass and different things like that, or in some places we need to put some rock in strategic places to make sure we hold on to the soil.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So can I show you another thing?
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So one thing that's really interesting, I think, I'm kind of a soil nerd. So, you know.
Soil nerd. I didn't know there was such a thing.
Absolutely. So I'm going to bend down here.
Okay.
We actually have a, thank you, a container here with just some bare soil. Okay. And we are going to take a little paper here. This is just going to be kind of our backdrop. Show what we do, and we're going to make it rain.
Ooh,
Make it rain on the soil.
I like a good rainstorm.
Absolutely. So let's see what happens when it rains. And so believe it or not, raindrops are like little explosions
Ooh,
on bare soil. And so if we look really close, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look really close, there's places where the soil has actually been exploded up
yeah.
pretty far onto here. So when it rains, those soil particles actually get dislodged or turned loose by the rain, and then if it's on any kind of slope or anything, it will actually wash the soil away. Now, interesting thing, we don't really have the time to do it today, but you might have noticed I put a little quarter here. So if we were to let this rain on here a long time, you would actually see that there becomes like a little mountain because the soil washes away everywhere where the quarter is not.
Oh, because the quarter's like the shield protecting it.
Exactly.
Oh.
So if we let that rain on there a while, we would have like a little quarter mountain. So, lots of fun.
That's very interesting.
Yes, I think so. The other cool thing about soil, again, being a soil nerd, you know, and importance of water is the more we keep it covered and the more that we can encourage the biology. There's a big fancy word.
Ooh, that is a big word.
So the biology, the life, there's a lot of critters and things that actually live in the soil.
Ooh, critters. That sounds like creepy crawly things.
Oh, yeah.
Do you like creepy crawly things?
Yes.
Okay.
So I should have told you, when I was a kid, I was kind of one of those kids that liked to get pretty dirty. You know?
Oh.
And one of my tools that I use a lot in my job is a shovel. So I'm digging a lot of stuff up and getting dirty all the time.
Oh, man.
So I'm always looking for whatever kinds of critters and creepy crawlies may be located in there. See, I'm already getting dirty.
Oh.
You wanna?
Okay. I don't really like this. The other day in the Big God story, I played in the dirt, and my mom later said, you had a really disgusted look on your face the whole time, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna do?
You can wipe it on my jeans if you want.
Oh, it's all right.
That's what I do. I just kind of do one of that.
All right, I have jeans on too. Here, I'll wipe them on my jeans.
All right.
Look at me.
Look at that.
I know, sometimes people are surprised that I was a farm girl because I don't really like being dirty.
Oh, you were a farm girl.
I was a farm girl, yeah.
Excellent. So this is review for you.
Yes, but good information.
Yeah, so the soil is full of life, and we want to encourage that life. And the life that's in the soil is everything from worms and beetles and things that you think of to bacteria and fungi and all these other things that actually are very important to the whole web of life. And honestly, it's fascinating to me when we think about the way that God created all of this.
I know.
Isn't it? It's just amazing.
It's a very intricate design.
It is, absolutely. And the healthier that soil is, typically the more life we have in the soil. And because those critters have created channels and they've glued the soil together, that water can actually infiltrate better in soil that has good biology versus running off.
Right.
So that also minimizes our erosion. So, some of the things that are fun to talk about in the soil.
I feel really nervous right now
Uh-oh.
because there's something moving in there.
So one thing really common that I think a lot of you are probably thinking is what?
Is it a worm?
It's a worm.
Oh,
Yay, it's kind of slimy. There's some leaves in there. So there's a big, nice night crawler. Right?
Oh.
So he's gonna make all kinds of holes in the soil, and he will take, things like old leaves and old pieces of our corn crop and that kind of thing, and drag them into his hole and eat that and turn that into fertilizer and good soil for the next thing. What other kinds of fun things do we have in here?
Oh, there's more things.
Oh yeah, let's just.
Oh, I see something else in there moving.
Oh, there's another little worm.
Little tiny worm.
A little guy. There was I know there's something else.
Oh no. Did you lose it? Is it loose in here? Ah.
Ooh, there's one.
Oh.
That's
a bug.
We call those pill bugs, or you guys
Oh,
ever
yes, pill bugs.
roly-poly?
Roly-polies.
Yeah. If we kind of scare him a little bit, he'll turn into a little ball, right?
Oh, he started to. No, he's not going to do it.
He wants to be on his back.
He's taking in. He's trying to relax.
I was pretty sure we had a few other things, but yeah, anytime that you go out in your yard and you turn over a rock or something or dig a hole, you can find all kinds of things. This worm really wants to get away.
He does.
He wants to be part of the set forever.
I don't think I want him to be a part of the set forever.
Oh, there it is.
Oh!
It was on the lid. So this one's actually a slug.
A slug.
Yeah, a little slug. Again, very important to recycling nutrients in the soil. So the last and not least, this is one that tends to kind of freak people out, right? So
I'll be brave.
So we actually have a little snake here. I know.
A snake.
This is a harmless, what we call ringneck snake.
Our worm's trying to get off the table.
And since we were talking about nature, this is, certainly it's part of the cycle of soil. And it will eat, those of you who are not crazy about the 8-legged critters like arachnids and spiders and that kind of thing, these are really good to have around. So they eat a lot of spiders. And there's a beautiful little snake, very small, have a small mouth. They have
a very small mouth.
This
It's tiny.
little ring around its head. And so, again, to us, totally harmless, really good at eating some of these little critters like spiders and things that we probably don't want. These have an interesting characteristic underneath. If you can see, their belly is usually kind of red or yellow.
I see that.
Yeah. And so when they get scared, they roll over and it kind of, whatever might be trying to eat them goes, ooh, that looks kind of freaky. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to bring and talk to you about today, and just talk a little bit about nature and the critters that we find out there as we go about our job, and what's important for growing our food.
So, it's important. So just like farmers grow lots of large crops, but maybe some families have gardens at home that they grow things in. Are there things that they can do that will help the garden to grow better?
Absolutely. That's a great question. We want to encourage the biology like we talked about, right? So anytime that you can keep that soil covered. So we recommend, if you do have to till the garden up a little bit to get things started, put some mulch back on that. So whether it be straw or even growing some cover crops in between your rows, there's some different things like that that we can do to get those roots growing in the ground or keep that splash erosion from happening in your garden. So yeah, definitely mulching and covering the soil as much as possible. That also is a great way to keep the weeds down too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
weeds in the garden is like the worst part of having a garden.
Yeah. If you want to save your back and not have to weed so much, put a lot of mulch out there.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jared. It was very interesting, and I learned something, and I hope you learned something as well. Well, friends, I don't know about you, but I've learned a lot today about how the bees pollinate and how all that works, and erosion, and how the ground needs to be taken care of. And it really is important that we remember that God has entrusted us with this planet, and it's our job to take care of it. So I came up with 3 ideas that I thought might work for our challenges today for this little light of mine, and how you can shine your light this week. So One thing you could do is plant some flowers for the bees, right? Give them some fun places to go pollinate. And maybe you can watch them come and watch how they work and the beautiful design that God made in that. Or maybe you have a garden, or you could plant a garden, and we learned some nice tips from Mr. Jared about how to take care of the ground and the soil. But if you have a garden or you're going to plant one, I want to just challenge you with this, that maybe you give some of that produce away. We have a food pantry here at the church that you could bring it and we could share it with the families that come here, or you could take it to Beyond Homeless, or maybe you just go give it to a neighbor who could use some fresh produce. But look for ways that you could give that to someone else this summer. And the other thing I thought of was, it's our job. God has entrusted this planet with us. And that means that we need to take care of it. And sometimes people make bad choices and they throw trash out the window. So maybe when you go on a walk or you're out playing with your family, you could take a bag or two with you and maybe some gloves and pick up trash as you go along the way. I noticed the other day when I was taking a walk that there was a lot of trash, and I thought to myself, I wish I had a bag. So the next time I go on a walk, I'm gonna grab a bag and pick up the trash as I go along so that we can help take care of our planet. I thought for chill time today, instead of doing it here, it made sense for our nature show to go out and enjoy nature as we have our chill time. So I'm gonna grab my Bible and let's go. Hey friends, we're out here on the farm with Mr. Rick, our good pal.
Yeah, so Hannah asked me, what's up with the farming thing and why do you do it and what's it really all about? Well, it fills a soft spot in my heart because I love God's creation. It's just so cool. And then the laws that govern God's creation is just so amazing when you do it. So like I farm because I like the husbandry side of it. I like the agronomy side of it. I like the making stuff better, okay? And this farm here where we're at today is a really good example of the difference between dominion and stewardship.
Well, those are two big words. Let's see if we can explain those.
Okay.
Right. We can work together.
Yeah, we can work together. I may be wrong, okay? You were talking about dominion. To me, dominion is that we have the rights to use this. I have the rights to use this piece of property to grow hay on, to feed my cows, to make a living for me when I sell calves, okay? That's dominion. But then, really, I'm just a steward, okay? It was cool when God created Adam. He created him to work the garden, okay? And work only became dreary when they sinned.
That's right. It was joyful work at the beginning.
And that joyful stuff is okay. Side note, okay, I read that heaven isn't church 724, okay? So like when we get to heaven, God could assign me to be the agronomist or the husbandry of his cattle on 1,000 hills. Okay, now we'll go to church, but there's more to it. So I have a responsibility. I'm a steward over this. You want to do
right. I've heard it explained that having dominion over is like a king. They could rule in a very mean, hard-fisted way, and I'm going to do things my way, and you're here just to serve me. Or they could be loving and kind to their subjects. And so for us, that means we are loving and kind, and we take care of the world that God has provided for us. So whenever it says in Genesis that we're supposed to have dominion over the world, that doesn't mean that we use it and abuse it. It means that we take good care of it. And so I thought it'd be fun. We have chill time for our show, and I thought since it's a nature show, it made sense to be out in nature.
Absolutely.
For our chill time. Well, let's take a little time and just be quiet in our chill time and listen. I can hear birds chirping and the sun is shining, and it's a beautiful day that God's given us. So let's just sit, and I want you can imagine that you're out here in the field with us, or you can go into your imaginary garden that we created last week. But I want you to just take a moment and just be still. And just be still. When you're ready, I want you to ask Jesus, what do you want me to remember from today's show? And then I want you to ask Jesus to show you how to let your light shine for him this week. Psalm 24 verse 1 says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." God has entrusted you to take care of his creation. But remember, you are also God's favorite creation, and you are loved. Thank you, Mr. Rick, for letting us come out and enjoy your farm and God's beautiful world.
Yeah, it's a joy, okay, to share. I mean, look at this. This is. I'm just a steward, you know. I mean, I want to share it.
Yeah.
Thanks for
All
coming.
right. Thank you so much. Let's go back. That was great. Oh, you know what that means. It's the end. It's time to say goodbye. It's time to say goodbye. God sure made a spectacular you. He loves you, and I do too. But now it's time to say goodbye. Bye, friends. I'll see you next time.